For the first time in 2 millennia, a biblical prophecy appears to be unfolding in real time. In the land of Israel, a ceremony involving a red heifer, a flawless calf some believe has been unseen for 2,000 years, has taken place. For many prophecy watchers, this isn't just a religious ceremony. It's the critical step they believe is required to build a third temple and trigger the final timeline of end-time events. What you're about to see is why so many believe a 2,000-year-old prophecy is happening now. The prophetic clock, they say, is ticking faster than ever. We could be living in days foretold by the prophets, and an event that has been impossible for generations may now be on the horizon. This isn't just a story from the ancient past. For many, this is a news report about our collective future. To understand the sheer magnitude of what people believe is happening, we have to go all the way back to the book of Numbers, chapter 19. It's here that God gives Moses and Aaron one of the most mysterious commandments in the entire Bible. The Lord said, "Tell the people of Israel to bring you a red heifer without defect, in which there is no blemish, and on which a yoke has never come." Now let's break that down, because every single detail is critical. First, the cow has to be a female calf, a heifer. Second, it must be perfectly red. According to rabbinic tradition, this is so strict that just 2 hairs of another color could disqualify it. Its hooves, too, must be red. Third, it must be completely without blemish, a standard of physical perfection that's extraordinarily rare. And finally, it must never have been used for labor. No yoke could have ever touched its neck. These rules are so incredibly stringent that for centuries, meeting them has been seen as practically impossible. But the commandment didn't stop there. This perfect animal was to be sacrificed outside the camp and burned into a fine ash. The priest would then add cedar wood, hyssop, and scarlet wool to the fire. Finally, the ashes were gathered and mixed with pure, living water to create what the Bible calls the water of purification. Why was this so important? This mixture was the only way God provided for cleansing from the most severe form of ritual impurity, contact with death. In ancient Israel, if you touched a dead body, or even a grave, you were considered ritually unclean. In that state, you couldn't enter the tabernacle, or later, the temple courts. You were cut off from the presence of God. The priests, the holy vessels, and the temple grounds themselves all required this purification. This is a mainstream, traditional view, and it holds that without the ashes of a red heifer, the entire system of temple worship simply couldn't function. It was the absolute, non-negotiable prerequisite. And for 2,000 years, those ashes haven't existed. For almost 1,000 years, the first and second temples were the center of the Jewish universe, the dwelling place of God's presence on earth. The glory of the second temple, expanded by Herod, was legendary. But it all came to a horrifying end in the year 70 AD, just as Jesus prophesied in Matthew 24, telling his disciples, "Truly I tell you, not one stone here will be left on another." The Roman legions under General Titus besieged Jerusalem. They burned the city, slaughtered countless people, and completely demolished the Holy Temple. The sacred vessels were hauled off to Rome as spoils of war, an event you can still see carved into the Arch of Titus in Rome today. This was more than a military defeat. It was a spiritual cataclysm. With the temple gone, the sacrificial system stopped. The priesthood couldn't serve. The Jewish people were scattered across the globe in the diaspora. And somewhere along the way, the lineage of the perfect red heifer was lost. A well-known Jewish tradition based on the Mishnah teaches that only 9 red heifers were ever sacrificed from the time of Moses to the destruction of the Second Temple. The great Jewish sage Maimonides is traditionally interpreted as having prophesied that the 10th and final heifer would be prepared by the Messiah himself. For 2,000 years, fulfilling Numbers 19 was a prophetic impossibility. There was no temple, the Jewish people were scattered, and no one could find a biblically qualified red heifer. The prophecy lay dormant, waiting for a generation that would see the impossible start to happen. That long wait began to change on May 14, 1948, when Israel was reborn as a nation. The fig tree, as Jesus described it, started to put out new leaves. The prophetic clock started ticking again. But one crucial piece was still missing. The key, some believe, will unlock the final chapter. For decades, groups in Jerusalem, especially the Temple Institute, have worked tirelessly to prepare for a third temple. They've recreated over 60 sacred vessels, including the Golden Menorah, and trained a new generation of priests. But they always hit one massive roadblock. Without the ashes of a red heifer, all their work was symbolic. They couldn't purify the priests or the Temple Mount. The search for a qualified heifer in Israel was fruitless. Time after time, a promising calf would be disqualified by a few non-red hairs. But the search didn't end there. It led them to an unlikely place, the cattle ranches of Texas. In a stunning turn of events, Christian ranchers, deeply invested in biblical prophecy, began using their breeding expertise to produce a perfect red heifer. They understood the prophetic significance. After years of effort, they succeeded. In September 2022, a delegation of rabbis from the Temple Institute flew to Texas and, after intense inspection, approved 5 red heifers that appeared to meet the strict biblical requirements. In an operation of huge logistical and political sensitivity, these 5 calves were flown to Israel. Special permissions were obtained to bring them into the country. Upon arrival, they were taken to a secure location and raised under constant watch. Now, things have become complicated and confusing, with conflicting reports stirring major debate. While some sources claimed a preparatory ceremony had already taken place, recent news in August 2025 from the Temple Institute itself announced that all 5 of the Texas heifers had been disqualified due to developing non-red hairs. However, even before that, other reports and videos surfaced, claiming that a sacrifice of 1 heifer did in fact take place on July 1, 2025. Those involved claim it was a legitimate ceremony performed with a qualified heifer and priest, but that it was deliberately downplayed as a practice run to avoid political and public backlash. According to these claims, for the first time in 2 millennia, the ashes are now available. So while official channels express setbacks, others insist the prophecy has already been fulfilled in secret.
This book is your beginner's guide to understanding Scripture. Find peace, build relationships, and discover purpose in today's world. Ready to decode the Bible? Find Bible Decoded available on Amazon now.
If this content blesses you and you'd like to support our mission, you can buy me a coffee or give a super thanks. Every contribution helps us create more content to inspire and uplift others. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on my future videos. So what does all this mean? For those who believe the ceremony was real, the availability of red heifer ashes isn't just about reviving an ancient ritual. They see it as removing the final spiritual barrier to building the third temple. It's a signal that the prophetic stage is now fully set. Why is a third temple so critical to this view of end times prophecy? The Apostle Paul gives a chilling answer in 2 Thessalonians chapter 2. He speaks of a coming man of lawlessness, often called the Antichrist, who will oppose God and exalt himself, eventually taking his seat in the temple of God, displaying himself as being God. For this specific prophecy to be fulfilled, there must be a temple in Jerusalem. For centuries, this seemed impossible, as the Temple Mount is home to the Dome of the Rock and Al-Aqsa Mosque. But now, with priestly garments made, temple vessels recreated, and the means of purification potentially at hand, some groups believe the construction of this prophesied temple is no longer a question of if, but when. It must be stated, however, that there is no official Israeli government plan to build a third temple, and the idea is a source of major political and religious conflict. The prophet Daniel also spoke of a future ruler who would make a covenant, only to break it and stop the sacrifices. In its place, he would set up an abomination that causes desolation. Jesus references this prophecy in Matthew 24, warning his followers that this event is a sign of the Great Tribulation. Both of these core end-time prophecies in this Christian eschatological view require a functioning temple. The red heifer is seen as the key that unlocks that door. It's the prophetic domino that, once it falls, could set in motion a chain of events, culminating in the final judgments and the return of Jesus Christ. The world may see a complex religious dispute, but those watching for prophetic signs believe they see something much bigger unfolding. This is all happening on the most contested piece of real estate on earth, Jerusalem. The Temple Mount, where the temples once stood, is known to the Muslim world as the Haram al-Sharif, their third holiest site. The idea of building a third Jewish temple there is seen by many as an existential threat. This isn't speculation. Israel's enemies are watching. In a speech 100 days after the war began on October 7, 2023, a spokesman for Hamas explicitly listed the bringing of red cows as one of the justifications for their attack. They even named their operation the Al-Aqsa Flood, showing they view the red heifers as a direct threat to their mosque. This appears to be a stunning fulfillment of another biblical prophecy. The prophet Zechariah declared that in the last days, God would make Jerusalem a cup of staggering to all the surrounding peoples, and a very heavy stone for all peoples. The red heifer is acting as a catalyst for this exact conflict. It's inflaming passions and drawing battle lines. The world may see a religious dispute over cattle, but prophecy students see something much more profound at play. This single, seemingly obscure ritual is becoming a flashpoint for global conflict. These tensions are escalating in the wider context of the Middle East. With Iran and its proxies threatening Israel, some see the shadow of the Great War of Ezekiel 38 and 39 looming. Ezekiel prophesied a coalition of nations which many scholars identify with modern-day Russia and Iran coming against Israel in the latter days. The red heifer controversy is raising the stakes, adding fuel to a fire that's already burning and pushing the world closer to the conflicts foretold in the Bible. As monumental as the red heifer story is, it's not happening in a vacuum. Believers see it as one major sign among a powerful convergence of prophecies, all appearing to come to pass in our generation. It's as if God is highlighting passages from His Word with the ink of current events. Think about what many call the super sign of the end times, the rebirth of Israel in 1948. For nearly 2,000 years, the Jewish people were scattered. Prophets like Ezekiel and Isaiah foretold their miraculous return. In Matthew 24, Jesus uses the parable of the fig tree, saying, "When you see all these things, you know that it is near, right at the door. Truly, I tell you, this generation will certainly not pass away until all these things have happened." The generation that saw the fig tree, Israel, blossom is, according to this view, the generation that will see the fulfillment of all these things. Add to that the wars and rumors of wars Jesus warned of, which are escalating with terrifying frequency. We see a rise in global deception and a falling away from truth, just as Paul warned in 2 Timothy would happen in the last days. The red heifer isn't just one piece of a puzzle. For many, it's the keystone in an arch of converging prophecies. The rebirth of Israel, the reclamation of Jerusalem, the preparations for a third temple, and the increase in global conflict all seem to be coming together at this exact moment. The prophetic clock isn't just ticking, it's sounding an alarm. We've gone from an ancient commandment in the book of Numbers to the breaking news and conflicting reports of today. We've seen how a 2,000-year-old prophecy, dormant for centuries, is now being acted upon with breathtaking speed. The preparation of the final red heifer in Israel is not just a curious piece of religious news. For millions, it is a signpost on the prophetic timeline, pointing directly toward the construction of a third temple, the events of the tribulation, and the ultimate return of Jesus Christ. The question, then, isn't whether these things will happen. The Bible's prophecies have been uncannily accurate so far. The question becomes personal. What does this mean for you? Are you prepared for what might come next? For those who don't know the Lord, these signs can be seen as a warning, but they can also be seen as a merciful call. For those who have put their faith in Jesus Christ, these signs aren't a cause for fear, but for hope. Jesus said in Luke 21, "When these things begin to take place, stand up and lift up your heads, because your redemption is drawing near." These events are a powerful confirmation for believers that God is sovereign and that His word is true. The stage is being set. The priests have been trained. The heifers are in the land. The world is watching, whether it knows it or not. The final prophecy is no longer a matter of if, but when. If you believe we are living in the final generation and that the return of the Lord is near, declare your faith in the comments below by typing, "Jesus is coming," or "Maranatha." Prophetic events are accelerating and developments are happening faster than most can keep up with. To stay informed and understand the biblical significance of what's unfolding, make sure you subscribe and click the notification bell. We'll be tracking every young aspect of this story, from the controversy over the red heifer ceremony to the preparations for the third temple. You don't want to miss what happens next. The time is short. Watch and pray.
Feeling anxious or disconnected? Ready for a deeper faith journey designed just for you? Discover Bible Study for Black Women. This guide nurtures faith, strength, and growth week by week. Overcome fear and connect with God. This empowering journey is waiting. Find Bible Study for Black Women on Amazon today and start building unshakable faith.
If this content blesses you and you'd like to support our mission, you can buy me a coffee or give a super thanks. Every contribution helps us create more content to inspire and uplift others. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on my future videos.